Foundation, che opera con 45 distretti scolastici negli Stati Uniti, proprio con lo scopo di migliorare la qualità delle referenze e dei passi nelle forniture per le scuole. Grazie Thomas.
Thank you. I'm so happy to, thank you. I'm really so happy to be here, and only a little sad that I did not get Elena's instructions. I have no pictures to show you, so I will try to use my words well to tell you my story. And before I start, can you, Elena, put that education manifesto up there? I was looking at it in my seat and thinking that this is the Slow Food Manifesto on Education, which I'm reading and I'm thinking, you know, the kinds of attributes listed here are exactly the kinds of attributes that I see daily in the best of the work with my 45 districts we work with. And this work, I lead a team of 14 people. Everyone can hear me? Yes, yes. 14 people, 5 of us live in New York City, and the other 9 live across the country. So we work virtually and do a lot of meetings in different parts of the country to work with our 45 school districts. In the United States, there are something like 15,000 school districts across the country, and they are small size, medium, and large. Our universe are the large school districts, which means school districts that have more than 30,000 students, say. And the reason that is our universe is that we are trying to work with them to change what it is they're purchasing. So to use their procurement power, the money that they have, in buying foods that are different than what they have had in the past. And in the United States, our food program came into existence in the 1940s from the government, and it has evolved over time with lots of advocacy around it, steering it. But as Terra Madre folks know, very highly processed foods started appearing in the 1980s, the 1990s, and those have swamped our public food programs. So that is the most of what it is that is served. And when you talk about the procurement power of these 45 districts, they serve 5 million students a year, and their food budget is $600 million a year. Now, while there are 140 large school districts across the United States, not all of them want to change. Many are very happy with what is in place. We have, as you know, our elections are coming up. We have lots of conflict, this way, that way. And so we have looked for, within the 140, the district leadership that is interested in trying to make a different pathway into our over-processed food system so that we're bringing better food into the children. Now, over, I'd say, the last 10 years, especially with the Obamas, we have made lots of good change in the schools. There's been lots of great work. Is anyone here from the United States? Oh, wow. Okay. Great, great, great. So the pickup on education with the kids, with the parents, in the community, the gardens, farm to school, that's all happening. And we have Barack and Michelle to thank for raising this as well as they raised it. Donald Trump would never be able to think of that. Our work is a little bit before the education and the gardens. It's in the supply chains. And so how to say this is that we're trying to change the food across the plate according to what the district leadership thinks it can do in an organized kind of fashion. And so while Farm to School has done a lot of produce, and we work on some of the produce, we work a lot on the animal protein and the plant-based proteins, as well as grains. And our aim is to drive this change through the procurement pathways so that the districts are able to pull in food that is good and fair and of quality, which is not, it's been an interesting learning process because initially we had to think about how to do this because they weren't used to this, and all they could say was that their distributors could not get this. And the more we worked deeper in the supply chain, from the producer to the aggregator to the processor to the manufacturer to the distributor, and talked and worked, slowly we made some progress. And the way we made the progress, different than a lot of, now procurement is very popular in the United States. I think the people from the United States will say you hear that word a lot. We've been doing this for about 8 years. And the way we've been doing it is by going shoulder to shoulder with the people in the kitchens, with the people who are buying the food, to figure out what they want that's different, and for them to identify what their problems are. And we've done this. I don't know where I am in time. Can you tell me by time? I have 2 minutes? Good. So what we ended up doing was creating something we call learning labs. And we started this in St. Paul, Minnesota, and worked with them for 18 months. They worked on chicken, they worked on produce, they worked on chocolate milk, and they worked on grains. And then we went to Denver, and they chose different foods that were a problem. And then we went to Chicago, and they had a whole different picture about what their problems were. But what was common was to work back in the supply chains to get the food as whole as we could get it into those distributors that distribute across a large school district. Might have 100 and 200 schools. New York has more than 1,000, so you have to deal with that distribution problem. Anyway, it was slower than we wanted it to be, and it was very expensive to go district by district, and so we changed to multi-districts. So now we have 4 multi-district labs, one in the upper Midwest, that's the longest time one in the South, which is a couple years in, one that just started in California, and one that is nationwide. And the nationwide deals a lot with the national supply chains, whereas the California, South, and upper Midwest deal with more local chains because they're closer to the smaller, medium-sized businesses and producers in their area. I can say we finished the evaluation on our first multi-district learning lab, which was the Midwest, and there's a long story behind it, but using the criteria that these districts put together, they have to meet the federal guidelines or they don't get reimbursed. So that's one thing. They and we think of the federal guidelines as the floor, the base. They want to be better than that. They want whole food. They want food without the chemicals and the additives and the colors. They call that, their ingredients of concern, they call that healthy food. They want food that's regionally sourced. And from the federal government, we now have something called geographic preference, and that just becomes a way of working to access more whole and minimally processed foods grown regionally. And the last criteria is sustainably produced. Sustainability has many, many different kinds of criteria, and we've worked on antibiotic resistance in terms of food that is certified responsible antibiotic use, CRAU. That is a standard that Focus developed with the Pew Charitable Trust. And it means that there is now poultry in the United States that is grown from small to large companies without the use of antibiotics that are important to human health. Because that's where we make the problem with antibiotic resistance. By using human medicine for animals, it makes no sense. And so those are the kind of criteria we look at: healthier, almost done, regional, and sustainable in terms of antibiotics use. And I'm so proud of the 6 districts in the upper Midwest, St. Paul and oh my goodness, what's next to St. Paul, the Twin Cities? No, that's the state. Minneapolis, Chicago, Detroit, they are Cleveland, and there's one more and it's just gone, but they have, in their 3-year project in the Learning Lab, changed their purchasing to the tune of $15 million, approximately, of foods that have these, new foods that have these characteristics. And those foods are chicken, bean burritos, turkey, and produce. And so we're very proud of that. 15 million out of a budget of 600 million is small, but it's strong. And we're learning how to do this. It is a slow process. And let's see what happens with our elections. I'd like to think that we can keep going forward and that we will, no matter what happens, we'll go forward because it's for the children who need good food to grow into citizens that could function well in our country.